Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am one of their hosts, and alongside my good guy, my boy, my man with some type of plan, Mr. Brice. And we got quite a bit to talk about today, but first, I got to get some stuff off my chest, man. I know everybody was fiending for some sports, and ESPN, Walt Disney, you did the job. That Jordan documentary, the first 2 episodes, were hot fire. It was something to see, something to believe in, something to keep your hearts going. Everybody was on it. People were talking. They're still talking about it right now. Sports, the debates are getting out of control. It's like sports are going on right now without it going on. So good job, ESPN. And first, how did you feel about the first? I know you told me that you've only watched the first episode and you haven't seen part 2 yet. So as far as what you've seen in part 1, how do you really feel about Jordan doc so far?
I mean, honestly, since they're doing it, I mean, obviously, because they kind of consider like a 30 for 30, but just like a longer Jordan-centric thing. They've always done a great job with making these documentaries, and I can tell with Jordan, this one's about to be fantastic. It's one of the things in life I think you can always agree that's going to be good, which is like a 30 for 30 type show like the Jordan doc is. I can just tell that from watching the episode 1. It's just really interesting to see just Jordan in the light that he's going to be depicted. Because we know a lot, we've heard a lot, but we've never seen it to the extent we're going to see it over the next few weeks. And I think that's why it's going to captivate so many people. And it really actually does help that nothing else is really going on too much, because now any basketball lover or Jordan fan can just watch this doc and be amazed by the man we call the GOAT in the game today, still Michael Jordan.
Well, we're not here to have basketball debates, so I'll let you have that idea of Michael Jordan's GOAT. I really don't know who the GOAT is, but I do know this, that the NFL needs to step it up. It's time. The NFL has some good 30 for 30s. I know the Miami 30 for 30 is good, but even though that's not really NFL, I watched the 30 for 30 on the 85 Bears, which I thought was really good, but I don't think people really gravitate to the NFL one more, because something like this is very personal, right? So as MJ is basketball, there's only so many people that you can interview and talk to. The Bears are like a team of like 40, 50 people, not even including the coaching staff and all that. So when you think about it from a football perspective, I wanted to know what football storyline, year, era, team would really, really shine in like this Last Dance-esque type of documentary.
That's a good question. There's been a lot of stories and a lot of teams throughout the history of the league. I mean, I guess, it's really hard for me to say anything, because I'm trying to think what, like, just period of time is just something that people really want even more of an inside look into. Because obviously,
listen,
go ahead, Ethan. Who you?
I gotta say, I saw one that sparked also my other thought, but one people were talking about was the Cowboys dynasty. Like, it has to be shown with Michael Irving and with Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman and all those guys. They say that probably would be really good. But the one that I thought of the first time, I gotta know what happened in those Steelers locker rooms for the past 5 years. I gotta know how.
Are you talking about from like when Antonio Brown was at his peak and the Burfict and all that, and then just the issues they had behind the scenes?
Just
about that topic?
The last 6 or 7 years, I need to know. I want to know everything, bro. From AB, I need to know just how he was full time while he was at the peak of his powers. I want to know just how grimy Ben Roethlisberger is supposed to be. I want to know how James Harrison is involved. I got to know what Le'Veon was going through. I got to know what Mike Tomlin was going through. I need to see it, bro. I need to tell all on this Steelers era, because since the last Super Bowl they were in, it's just been widely kind of disappointing as far as playoff performance to Super Bowl contention, stuff like that. And I just think they have they would have interesting characters because everybody has something to tell. And I would just like to see it. I'm sure it wouldn't happen anytime soon. I don't even know if we could even have it. It would probably be, there wouldn't be a lot of like behind the scenes footage. I know that's for sure.
Apparently they're always recording though. It's just there's a lot of footage you don't see.
Yeah. So I love to see like some locker room stuff, just how folks were going through it. I gotta see it, man, because I think everybody is concerned that Antonio Brown has fell off the deep end, but there's just a lot of stuff about the Steelers that just seem wildly interesting to me and fascinating as a team composition, because they had all this talent. They never could really pull it all together at the right time, or they ran up against the Patriots or whatever the case may be. And every single time they were just kind of like a ticking time bomb that we didn't really see until the latter half. And when Le'Veon was asking out, and then Juju was getting flamed on Instagram by his old teammate, and then Antonio Brown went off the deep end, and then they started throwing shots at Ben Roethlisberger, saying that he's not innocent in all this, and he's actually the worst guy in the locker room, and he's always throwing people under the bus. I'm just interested. I want to see it.
Okay. Now that you say that, I actually wouldn't mind seeing the last 3 years of the Patriots dynasty this past 3 years, because obviously that's when all the drama and everything come out, and the relationship was more publicized, what's happening in between the dynamic of Kraft, Brady, and Belichick. And I think that'd be a pretty good doc. We could get more detail and insight into an organization that's never, you never really know that much of what happens with New England behind the scenes, because they never give any information to be out into the world unless they want it out. Right. So I think that also be a pretty good documentary to see just what happened, to see like, okay, like, so, obviously they're going to deny it publicly, but they like to actually like see if they'll admit it, if there's things that they can connect and say, okay, the dissension was real. Brady really did feel disrespected. He really did maybe not completely embrace Garoppolo when he was there, and Kraft was just like, no, we can't do this, or else, whatever. So I think that would be a pretty good documentary, probably called The Last Years of the Dynasty. You know what I'm saying? Something simple like that. And I think that would be some good, a good docuseries to make. Because obviously, like you said with Pittsburgh, one thing about these docuseries is all of this has drama too. We want drama because that helps. Pittsburgh has drama. Chicago has plenty of that his last year. Patriots have some drama. That's all going to help create a more intense and a more, I guess, fulfilling show. Because that's one reason why I think the Jordan doc is going to be very successful, just because. And also,
I think you're right on the Patriots thing, because there's just so much that they could go back on. That's what makes Jordan so interesting, because everything is from a time and era where everything wasn't readily available via social media. Not everybody knew. Like, there are people who lived in Chicago for years during the Jordan era that have no idea what anything like this is about. Like, this is like a tell-all that no one knows about, because Michael Jordan, one, is so very, I don't want to say secretive. He's just very private. His life is very private. And he was at the peak of his powers basketball-wise in a time where, you didn't have reporters coming at you in tweets, or you didn't have guys tweeting at you every day, and your life is on Instagram all the time and stuff like that. It's just a different era. And I think someone like Tom Brady, you could do with him as well, because he's been playing for so long. He has so many things are backlogged. I love to see like from the kick miracle in the snow game, or the Brady rule and stuff, like all this stuff. I'd like to see a documentary. If anybody was in the NFL to have a documentary made for them by them, it has to be Tom, right? You would have to be TB12, the guy who is super into playing for another until he's 45 and all this, that, and the third. I'm sure somebody's talking to him about it right now if he hasn't already started thinking about his own documentary.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why he did that thing he did a couple of years ago with his docuseries on Facebook, I believe, where he kind of gave an insight into his lifestyle now. But like you said, you're talking about everything, bringing it all together from when he started playing to now. I definitely think that would be a real interesting documentary on a player as Tom. Yeah. Because it's Tom Brady, you know?
The thing is, I don't know if it would be that good, because the NFL really likes to protect the shield more than anything else. And if the brand might be affected because of some things said in the documentary, I don't know if they're going to mess with it. So
yeah, I feel like with Tom, you don't have to worry about it too much, but I see your point.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and take our first break of the day, and we're going to get into all the draft stuff that we're going to be talking about today.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, so Brice, a few weeks ago, scouts were very, very pleased with Tua's progress. His pro day happened. He was cleared by all medical physicians in the NFL, and it looked like he was going to be a shoo-in, and Miami was going to get their quarterback for the foreseeable future if all things planned out well and good. Well, we are very close to the draft, a few days away, and it is not looking – there have been some rustlings that guys like the Chargers not the Chargers, but Miami is going to pass on Tua and take Justin Herbert. The Herbert train is in full effect in a lot of talking circles. People have been evaluating and looking at different things, and they're saying that Tua might fall, and we don't know how far Tua will actually fall, but if he falls at all, that is. But give me your initial reaction to hearing the fact that Tua, who was originally scouted as the best quarterback prospect in this draft class before the college football season even begun last year, how do you feel about him falling potentially even out of the top 10?
I mean, listen, that's why I've called Tua the most polarizing player we've had in the NFL draft for a while, because of the fact that it's a true dynamic of he is, again, I've said, the most talented quarterback in this draft, but the injuries are scaring teams, and especially with this pandemic was the worst thing to happen for him, because obviously team doctors can't get their hands on him and be like, okay, we like him, we can clear it. Instead, you're always having to get independent people for the league or other doctors to say he's good, but still teams are very skeptical. Also, like I said, there's been a lot of things out there. Teams have been saying, we don't feel comfortable, like maybe he has a long shelf life because of the injuries he's had. Like, can he withstand the hits? Can he withstand the punishment? So if he does drop, it'll be interesting to see where he would go, because a lot of people haven't talked about, okay, if he drops below San Diego and Miami, like you don't hear that a lot. You hear maybe if he drops low enough, New England could trade up. But outside of that, you don't really hear anything else. I would think the same people who would consider drafting Jordan Love early would be the same teams they would consider drafting Tua, in my personal opinion. But I think that it's going to be interesting because there's so many rumors that are going to be coming out. So much news is going to be coming out. It's going to sway you left and right. Like this morning, I saw that actually Miami isn't going to take Justin Herbert. It's just a smokescreen, and it's either going to be Tua or another position player. But we won't know until we actually get there. I've got doctors coming out saying, oh, he's not going to be hurt again when he's 25. He'll be 35 when the hip comes into play. I mean, there's just different things because the stories are going to be leaking to try to, affect where he goes. Yeah. I mean, listen, if he does drop, it will be interesting what happens. But I mean, it's going to be very interesting what happens when the draft comes day one on Thursday.
Well, the thing is, this is probably the wackiest draft we're ever going to have because of this whole coronavirus thing. Not everybody's going to be in a war room or connected to each other. So anything is really on the board that I can't rule everything out. But I will say this. If I see Jordan Love come off the board before Tua, I'm going to have some issues with that. Like, this feels like Drew Brees all over again. This feels like Dante Culpepper getting picked up before Drew Brees, which, by the way, Dante Culpepper had an injury. I think he had a bad knee when he got on the Miami Dolphins, and it never worked out for him. But they didn't want to risk Drew Brees. Now, I'm not going to say at that immediate situation that they made the worst choice, because that's hindsight and it's 2020, and there's just no telling what would have happened. It was both teams made a risk there. It's just that Nick Saban and the Miami Dolphins back then just didn't pick the right one. Regardless, this feels similar to me because Tua has gotten a little bit of Drew Brees syndrome or Drew Brees archetype sort of things. He's a smaller guy, and he had an injury that supposedly is supposed to not really allow you to play. It's going to hurt you for a long time. Like, it's not going to let you play at an elite level. But apparently he should be ready to go, and that he's going to be healthy and should be able to play. But it is a concern, just like Drew Brees was a concern all those years ago. And we didn't know just how well Drew Brees was going to recover from it, which everything now is all history and all that stuff. But this feels very similar to me with that situation. And it's funny that Miami is the same team in a similar situation of trying to figure out who is going to be their quarterback for the future. Because, to be honest, when was the last time Miami had a chance of getting a franchise guy at the quarterback position?
I mean, that just depends on who you ask, because that debate they have in 2008, some Miami fans think they should have took Matt Ryan instead of Jake Long because of what happened. But I guess that'd be the only time I would think of that I could think of.
Right. And I think GMs are a lot smarter with their picks now than they used to be. But at the same time, you still don't know for sure. Quarterbacks are probably the biggest crapshoot within the football ranks, I would assume. It's very hard to find somebody who just fits and works out. And it's not always a sure thing. In fact, it's almost never a sure thing. And it's really hard to find two guys who are a sure thing in a draft. So there's going to be somebody within this draft who's going to surprise people. I just don't know who it's going to be, but if anybody's going to surprise people, I really do think it's going to have to be Tua. Right? It has to be Tua because he's behind the 8 ball. When in reality, if this injury never happened, he still had injury history that people were concerned about with different parts of his body outside of the hip. The hip was a freak accident. And now everybody is somehow questioning whether or not he'll be able to last in the NFL because of his running style and just the way he plays. But I would argue that his talent is well worth the risk, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to be stuck with Tua Tagovailoa for the rest of your life. If it doesn't work out, you're just going to stink. you're just going to be bad. But I'd rather be bad by taking a risk on a guy that potentially could be your franchise than be bad by trying to play it safe for a guy who is a quote unquote project and it never comes to anything and you just have to end up being in the lottery or you're in the top 5 for the next upcoming years because then somehow somebody ended up winning the Tua draft and he ends up being good. So all I know is Jordan Love just can't go before him. I would be really shocked to see Jordan Love go before Tua. I think a lot of it is smokescreen. I don't feel like GMs are really, really, really feeling like Tua is that big of a risk to where they can't draft him.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Especially, like I said, I mean, honestly, like I said, when it gets to that, if there's no trade ups, if he gets to 5 and 6, you would think he's going to either one of those teams. If not, then that's when everybody's going to start completely blowing up Twitter. Like, oh, he dropped past the 2 teams you thought, and now it's going to be, okay, who's trading up? So it definitely creates a very interesting storyline for you to watch during the draft if that did actually happen. Because I don't particularly believe that Jordan Love will be drafted before. I just don't see that happening like you don't either. I don't see that. But if that happens, I mean, hey, whoever gets to it might be one of those situations, chip on the shoulder. You know how it goes. I got drafted. Other guys got drafted in front of me. I'm better than those guys. I can use that as motivation. And one thing also about Tua is people forget Tua is a very coachable player. And Tua is a player who seems like he will mature and he will make adjustments to his game to protect himself. I don't think he'll play as recklessly as he did in college because I feel like, again, that's just part of the maturity process being in the league. And I feel like Tua exhibits those things that he'll do anything he can to protect himself so he doesn't cost the team if he gets hurt.
Right. Well, let's take a break and then we'll get into the trade block and then we'll move on to even more things I have to deal with this Thursday's upcoming NFL draft.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, so after talking about Tua, we're going to lead into talking about the trade block because guys are in the market now. People are looking to get off certain players, maybe even potentially move up in the draft because of the trades. And Leonard Fournette has been marketed on the trade block. This is actually directly after Leonard Fournette was being vocal about getting Cam Newton. No, he said no disrespect to Gardner Minshew, but we need that MVP. I said Cam Newton. And now Leonard is on the trade block. It's just, for one thing, who's trading for Leonard Fournette? And I don't say that to me Leonard Fournette's a bad player. I just don't know who's going to trade for him. And I don't think that they have the capital, or they don't have the reason to cut him. He's not like a cap hit. He only makes $4 million a year guaranteed he's still on his rookie deal. So it's not like he's a bad cap asset and you need to get him off the books. So do you feel like they're just going to end up keeping him and then this is just going to be one of those weird situations, or is it going to be somebody's going to trade for him on draft night or whatever the case may be? I just know whatever the trade is, I can't imagine it's going to be in the top. Like, it's going to be a first rounder or maybe even a second rounder, right? Like, would you trade Leonard for like a third or a fourth? Because I'm thinking fourth.
Yeah. I mean, so the interesting thing about Leonard Fournette is this. Obviously, we know about the running back shelf life. Fournette's been in the league for about 3 years, I believe. It's been 3 years since he's been drafted. So he's played 3 full seasons. They've used him a lot. He's coming off technically, statistically, his best season. But listen, first, we have to make it clear Jacksonville is trying to tank. That's why they're letting all their best players go. They're tanking. So I understand why they're making this move. I do think a fourth or a third would be good for Fournette. Obviously, we can't deny the talent Fournette is. If anybody gets him, your running back group has automatically upgraded. You have a workhorse if you needed one. Even though I don't know any team that would basically need a workhorse is good, but I don't think any team's going to use them like Jacksonville used them. So I think, honestly, one thing I think people have been trying to figure out is where's a good team for him to go. Because there's teams that need running backs, but then you have all these there's a good running back class this year in the draft. And it's just like, okay, so are we going to give up a third or fourth for Fournette, or are we going to draft one of these guys? Right. And it's really, to me, I've actually had a hard time trying to maybe pair him up with a team. I was looking maybe, I don't know, if the Jets got rid of Le'Veon, maybe. I mean, maybe
I wouldn't even know. Where would Le'Veon even go? They can't let him go. They can't cut him.
Pittsburgh may be a team because they do need a back, but I don't know if they're interested in it.
What about James Conner?
I mean, yeah, but I think, after James Conner had a down year last year, injuries and fumbling issues and stuff. So they're kind of like, do we really? Because he's not Le'Veon. So they probably, if there's a chance to get an upgrade, I think they'll look into it. Who else really? I mean, there's not really any teams that's just like, I feel like are going to sell the boat. That's why I don't think Jacksonville's going to get the value they want. So if you see a trade happen with Fournette and they get maybe like a low, like if they get like a fourth or a compensatory pick from somebody, that's really what I'm thinking that they can get for him. Even though Fournette is a talented running back, this is not like this man's a scrub. He's a talented running back. Maybe Tampa Bay, because they let some running backs go. That could be a place. Maybe, give Tom Brady a workhorse running back like Fournette. That could be.
That's what I was thinking. If Tampa Bay is going all in, right, you would assume that this would be the time to go all in. I would feel like it's weird. I think it's either Tampa or it would have to be maybe even New England, right? If New England gives up like a later round pick, not too far and late, but like a fourth and like a future pick or something like that, or maybe in the stand-up trade, give Sony Michel somebody else to help out. I feel like he's a traditional running back in the sense of he's going to go downfield, he's going to run, pick up yardage, he's going to put his head down and do his thing. And that's something that New England hasn't had since, LeGarrette? Really?
Yeah.
And
I think that would actually be also good for Sony just because I feel like Sony could be used more of a pass catcher in that situation.
Thing is, Sony can't catch. That's the problem.
All this offseason, he can work on them hands.
He's got all the time in the world. But it would be helpful because they don't have Tom Brady, of course. We still don't know exactly what New England's plan is at quarterback. I just have a hard time believing it's going to be Jarrett Stidham when the season starts. And it's not going to be somebody else. But if it is Jarrett Stidham, he's going to need somebody who can really hold the load on offense. And I just have a hard time believing that Bill Belichick is just about to open up the playbook to Jarrett Stidham. So he's going to need some run game in his life. He's going to need some quality guys. And like you said, you just recently talked about O.J. Howard. Maybe O.J. Howard to the Patriots might be something.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, honestly, I think when it comes to New England, it just depends on what do they want out of the season. Are you trying to compete or are you trying to tank? So that would be also the thing they have to think about too. But yeah, I mean, I think for Fournette, this is pretty much the main. I think the market's pretty small because I've heard they've got weak offers for him anyway. So we'll have to see if it heats up around draft time.
Right. And then, of course, OBJ is in the news. Well, he has been in the news for the past week or so. Some of the trade rumors have been unequivocally false, said by many insiders in the NFL, while others have said that he originally was in trade rumors for the Vikings. That has been squashed. However, the idea of Odell being traded has not been squashed, and it's very possible that Odell might be out of there, as some reporters have claimed that Odell is not happy with Baker Mayfield, and he feels like he was not done well, and his numbers did not reflect who he is as a player, and he may want out of Cleveland. I don't know what this means, but maybe what do you think Cleveland could be able to do with him, potentially on draft night, since this is kind of a draft podcast right now, on draft night? What do you think Cleveland will be able to pull off if they get off Odell? Because it seems like everybody would be waiting, of course, for draft trades right now. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to be trading pre-draft right before, like, not even 90 hours until the draft.
Yeah. Odell was going to be an interesting case. The thing that also hurts Odell is, again, this wide receiver draft class is deep. So, and Odell has that reputation. He's a diva. He's going to bring drama to your team. And so teams are going to be like, okay, do we give up a decent draft pick for him, even though we know he's talented, but we know the bag of cheap brands, or do we take one of these young guys who may have a clean record and could be maybe to us just as talented or better than Odell in the future? I mean, I think that's going to be the big thing. Don't be surprised if they did pull off a trade. The compensation isn't great. I can also see that happen. That happens sometimes because, it's not like it's going to be very easy to trade Odell. Obviously, the team that he's been mainly connected to is the Minnesota Vikings. And obviously, for obvious reasons, because they traded Stephon Diggs. So obviously, you only have Adam Thielen as one of your, potent wide receivers. You bring OBJ, you play Stephon Diggs, you're still two receivers deep with number one guys. So, I mean, I could see that, but if it's not there, I mean, people have said that the Patriots could sneak in there. I don't know now if they would. It really just depends. It just really depends who wants to do with OBJ. That's the big thing, really.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't know if Odell is actually as big of a issue as people like to say. Like, is he really this big diva that causes so much against the team? Like, did he really cause the Browns to lose? Is it his fault that the Browns stunk last year? I don't think so. He still racked up 1,000 yards. And for the most part, he seemed to be a guy who got with the program, even though he did not enjoy said program. And at the end of the day, we all were very critical of Freddie Kitchens. We were critical of Baker Mayfield. But when a teammate says it, all of a sudden it's an issue. So
I see what you're saying.
Was he really this big diva or issue last year? I don't know. And then the LSU thing, like, that's not even NFL football related. Like, that didn't. And even then, so is it really that big of a deal? He was giving money away and he was in the locker room, like, having a good time. I would like to see everybody else get filmed and followed all day long and just see how much your life, what we can pick apart, in my opinion. Now, I'm not even like an Odell apologist. I just think that he's not, compared to the divas that we've had in the last few years in the NFL, are we really sure that this is the one? He is the biggest one that people like to harp on?
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. I think the only thing is, I think Odell obviously has a brand, and I think I could see why. If it's true that he's not happy with Baker, I can understand, because he's like, if I'm with Baker, I'm not going to get the numbers I'm capable of getting, which means people will never put me as a top wide receiver, and he feels like he is a top wide receiver. So I can understand that, if that is true. I also think I think Odell, I feel like this is the case for any receiver. You've seen Diggs get mad about this, Thielen get mad about this, any receiver. There's a lot of receivers that get mad about this. If you're not getting thrown the ball, because there was a stretch where Odell was not getting the ball. I can understand him getting frustrated during that time period. But you would feel like a lot of receivers would get frustrated. So I also feel like I can get why you say it's not like it's just him just going crazy. It's not like T.O. on the sidelines, getting into it with the offense coordinator, getting into it with Donovan McNabb. It's not like that. And then taking it into the locker room, taking it to his driveway. You know what I'm saying? It's not like that. I think Odell is just a guy who likes to have fun when he's not playing football. And I think some people just judge him for that because they think he needs to be football 24/7 with no fun. And I think that's why people are critical of this man because, listen, Odell is still probably talent-wise one of the top guys in the game. The guy can get down the field, and he's a big play waiting to happen. I just think, with the reputation that he got with New York, that's going to follow him everywhere. And basically, if he does anything that shows any type of outburst or any type of dislike for what has happened, people are just going to jump on him like he's this horrible person, which I think is unfair.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take another break, and we're going to get into teams that can potentially do some damage in the draft.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Okay, Brice, we have some potential moves that can be made just like every other draft, but maybe some teams that you didn't really expect potentially make a move, maybe out there planning in the shadows to do some crazy stuff in this year's draft, filled with craziness and uncertainty. But the first team, I've just read a report today about the Chiefs may be looking if Henry Ruggs III, stout Alabama receiver coming out in this draft, if he falls, they may come up and get him. And that alone should just strike fear to the rest of the AFC. Henry Ruggs III ran a 4.34, something like that, close to it. It was a 4.3, and that would mean Mikael Hartman, of course, Tyreek Hill, and if they somehow get his hands on it, it would be Henry Ruggs all out there. Just Travis Kelce. And then they still have Williams in the backfield. Just all out there. Just ready to go.
They still also have Sammy Watkins, too.
Is this fair? Can you do this?
I mean, hey, I look at that Kansas City. They're probably looking to improve anytime they can. Listen, with Patrick Mahomes, you know what kind of offense you need to run. You need to run that playground. Just run and I'll get it to you. Because first of all, they feel like they're faster than anybody, so they can't keep up, and they're going to be taking shots. There's a reason why Mahomes in his first full season was MVP, and he could put up big numbers year after year after year because of this offense that's been assimilated around him. So if they add him, that would be crazy. Now, I don't know how far he would need to fall because I also had a rumor that the Jets it's looking likely the Jets are going to take him at 11. But if that doesn't happen, that's definitely something I think if Kansas City did, it would definitely be something that's going to definitely be like, oh, God, I think we know who our New England is now, guys. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be there every year.
This feels like when I saw the Falcons trade up to go get when this was literally the year after you guys went to the Super Bowl and had one of the most prolific offensive displays in recent memory. You guys go into the first round, trade up to go get Calvin Ridley. And as a Saints fan, I was devastated because you just didn't need any more offense. It just was not fair. Here we are again. Just thankful that it's not in my division again. But if this rumor comes to be truth, man, I can't imagine. This draft is about to get out of control because I just can't see this happening. There's another rumor that the Patriots may be potentially looking into going up and getting Tua if he falls too far. by too far, I mean if he comes out of the top 10, there's not a lot of guys looking for quarterbacks at that point in time, which would mean that the Patriots could potentially trade up into the draft and get Tua Tagovailoa, which would be quite interesting to me. I believe they are 24 or 23 in the draft, so they wouldn't have to. They have to move up maybe 10 spots or so to make that a possibility, or like they would have to get into like 14 or 15 maybe before things start getting a little dicey. But if they trade up for Tua, you got to believe the sky is the limit at that point, or they know what's happening here. No more Stidham. We are starting the new era with our new quarterback today, and basically it's a big bleep you to Tom, right? It has to be.
I mean, yeah, it could be. Now the only thing about it is, now we say screw Stidham, but again, this is not a normal off season, so we don't know the playbook. I think Stidham would start week 1 just because of that. But again, he'll probably play at some point. I can obviously see why they would aggressively try to go after him, though, because, listen, the Patriots are the team that they'll get that talented player that some teams are scared of, because you know that New England culture, if there is any issues, they will not have those issues with New England, so they can take that chance. And if it doesn't work, it's just strictly because they weren't good enough in that system. So that's definitely something that I think is definitely possible if he did drop that far. Though I have heard a rumor myself, Ethan, I want to tell you about. I want to see what your thoughts are on it. Obviously, we've talked about within the months of the off season about y'all's quarterback situation and how after Brice leaves, the perception is that Taysom Hill will be the guy. But there's a rumor that y'all might go ahead this year and maybe select the quarterback that yourself. So if Tua or Jordan Love fell to you, would you be on board with the Saints taking a quarterback if they fell?
Let me tell you this, all right? I'm perfectly fine with the Saints planning for the future by taking a quarterback. Should it be in the first round where these guys like Jordan Love and Tua are there? Probably not, because I just don't predict them to be there. You know who might be there, though?
Yeah.
He comes from Alabama and then goes over and has his best statistical season in Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. If Sean Payton gets his hands on Jalen Hurts, I'm all in. I'm all in, brother.
I know you about to throw a party.
I'm all in, bro. It is over. It is over with. Over. I would say the draft is done. They did it. I will never really recover from the fever dream I was happening when the Saints gave up their last few first rounders to get Marcus Davenport when everybody on the planet thought Lamar was coming. I have not recovered since. If we can get Jalen maybe in the second round, I'm ecstatic. I need to see it because I'm tired of this whole this Taysom stuff, man. Like, listen, I love Taysom. He's a good guy. He is a excellent part of the team, a great offensive weapon for sure. But is he your franchise quarterback? No. It's just PR, man. Like, this can't be. Like, it's just impossible, bro. I just can't believe. I have not seen.
You got to blame the coach, man. He's the one gassing it up.
No, man. I'm just not. I'm not feeling that one, bro. It's not I can't see it. I really can't.
Man, yeah, that would be pretty crazy if y'all got Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a guy. I mean, it'll be interesting where he goes. I think people look at him kind of like they looked at Lamar. You know, like is that fair to say?
Who, Taysom? I mean, they like to
no.
throw that.
No, I'm not talking about Taysom. I'm talking about Jalen Hurts. Can you compare it to Lamar Jackson?
Well, I mean, from the standpoint that they don't think he can play quarterback at the NFL level. He's not nearly as athletically gifted, but it's just getting out of control, man. I'm just not sure what's happening. And I don't think he should I don't know if he's a top 10 or a top first rounder, right? I don't know if he's that guy. But I think with the offense made for Sean Payton or offense ran by Sean Payton, it could be made for somebody like him. Just like we saw what Harbaugh did in the Ravens locker room, getting guys that could build an offense around Lamar Jackson and did so much damage within a year's worth of development. I'm just saying, Sean Payton is one of the best offensive minds in football, and I just have to believe that he could figure it out. If he's got people thinking Taysom Hill is the answer, I have to assume that he could make Jalen Hurts into something great.
All right, I got you. All right, we have a Jalen Hurts supporting to the Saints right here. You heard it right here on the podcast.
Listen, Thursday, if it happens, well, really, the round 2 is Friday, and that's when I predict he'll be going. But to finish up this segment real quick, since you wanted to bring up the Saints, I got to bring up the Falcons. Are they trading up for Isaiah Simmons, yes or no?
Either him or the cornerback from Florida. Those are the two guys I think they'll trade up for because we need both of those positions. So if they do, we need either another starting corner or a starting linebacker.
All righty. Anyone you preference the most?
I mean, I guess corner necessarily because we're going to have a very young secondary next year. So I think we have some guys like Isaiah Oliver and Kendall Sheffield, but if we add the guy from Florida, that'll probably complete the secondary. We'll see what happens with Keanu Neal. And then linebacker, I mean, we have that guy from Ivy League. I don't want to say his name, that's why I haven't said it, but I like him, and Deion Jones obviously still back there. So we may work with that. I feel like we can work with that before we work with, going ahead and drafting the linebacker first. But I just think it depends because I don't think Isaiah Simmons is going to drop to that point where we could pick him, in my opinion. So I definitely think the corner is something I would prefer at this point. And I think that we should be able to go get if we do trade up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's take another break and we'll get into who is the best team so far pre-draft.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Brice,
Sure.
What if I were to tell you that the Super Bowl contending team, the Super Bowl defenders, have brought back nearly their whole entire roster from last year?
Obviously, I look at them as a Super Bowl favorite. I'd say, listen, right now, looking at the AFC, Chiefs, again, Super Bowl.
Are they the best team, though?
You could make an argument Baltimore has the best roster.
I was going to say, Baltimore still might have the best roster. We may have seen Baltimore underperform, so we don't really know just how well they would have went up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, of course, because they lost to Derrick Henry and the runners. But you have to believe that they're going to improve again. And I like to see Lamar Jackson take another step in consistency with throwing the football. And we already know that their running scheme is electric, and they just brought in some better pieces on defense to help round out the edges on the team overall. And you'd think that they're the 1 and 2, obviously, in the AFC for sure. But I'm not too sure if we can just go ahead and give Kansas City the ultimate crown for sure, right?
I mean, obviously, here's the thing. I think you gotta look at this. If that offsides penalty never happened, they would have been in the Super Bowl twice for 2 years in a row.
True.
And the reason why they're there is because the key is that they can score on anybody. They have shown that on anyone. And the reason why I think the Ravens could be the team if they can play consistently is because they're the one team I think in the AFC that can match them with offensive firepower. And I think we both agree that they have the better defense overall than Kansas City. So it definitely is between those two teams to me. I just think if they do get to the AFC Championship game, it's going to be, especially with this new playoff format now, because the number 2 seed doesn't get a bye week. So it will give more of a chance for if one of those teams with a 2 seed to potentially lose before that matchup actually happens. So it definitely seems like it's a 2-team race, but you know there's always sometimes that surprise team. Is there any team in the AFC that you think could maybe be the wild card? Like, if certain things go right, if they stay healthy, they could compete with those teams?
Maybe I have a few in my head. I think that from a defensive standpoint, and if their offense can really, really score consistent points, I have been an avid supporter of the Bills Mafia for the AFC team I like to root for and to support from afar when the Saints season is in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. And it gives me a constant distraction because I have no real dog in the AFC fight, and they're just a fun team for me to root for and watch. And I think that they really could make some noise this year. They have a legit wide receiver to help out Josh Allen. Their defense was already legit beforehand. And I think if Josh Allen can improve on the accuracy, improve on decision making, he has the arm talent, he has the talent with his legs, and he doesn't have to do everything by himself. Of course, Devin Singletary can take a step up in touches because he was really, really good last year in his rookie year. I just think that they're definitely a team that I expect to try and make the playoffs and be successful at that. Another team, you'd have to think the Titans are going to try and make another push, right? They didn't lose anybody. They're really super young. Well, they did lose their tight end, but he wasn't really playing that much anyway in the beginning. So you lose Delaney Walker, but you re-sign your quarterback, who's supposedly your franchise guy now. You still have Derrick Henry, and you have all these young wide receivers and Corey Davis, and in your talented defensive back right now, or your defensive backfield and things like that. I think they can make a push for playoffs once again. Do they have a chance to win it all? I don't know. I mean, they were one game away from going to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So you can't really say that they can't make it. Was it a lot of fluky stuff? Did they just run out of luck? I don't know. But I think that those two teams in the AFC are definitely playoff. It's hard for me to say playoff locks because the AFC South is a weird conference, right? It's a weird division, I should say. Mm. Because, of course, there's still the Colts who everybody will always underestimate the Colts until they come out 4-2, and then whatever happens afterwards. But we'll all be surprised when the Colts come out 4-2 and be like, why didn't we not see this coming? And it happens every year. So the Colts could also be one of those teams, and then maybe the Broncos figure something out. I don't know. The AFC is actually can be competitive depending on what things happen. The NFC is probably the most interesting to me of seeing who is the top dog. to challenge the Chiefs because it's going to be, there's just a lot of teams out there in the NFC that could really, really have nice seasons. A lot of them could come out of the NFC South if things turn around. Of course, the NFC East, I'm sorry, not the NFC East, but the NFC West is a juggernaut waiting to just burst out because the Rams could figure something out. Of course, the 49ers could come back and really have another strong year. And then the Seahawks, who I believe have the best chance of really surprising some people, of just turning it on from the get-go and really making a good run in the beginning of the season. And it's going to really boil down to seeing if DK Metcalf can make the step, because I crunched some numbers last week on DK Metcalf. You know, in his first season, it's very comparable to guys that are similar to his archetype. So like Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio, Calvin Johnson. They all had similar first seasons as far as yardage and catches and yards per game and yards per reception, right? So the year 2 jump, a lot of guys on that list ended up getting closer to 75 receptions per year or for that year. And after they bumped up their receptions basically plus 20 for the most part, except for Michael Thomas. I just don't understand where the numbers came from for Michael Thomas, but literally everybody else went from 50 catches for the year to 75, 80 for some like Julio. And they ended up well over 1,000 yards. So this is coming from a guy like DK, who was in a limited role as far as what he was able to do on the field, as far as the routes that he was able to run or was given on the play sheet. And there have been articles written in recent time about DK Metcalf and the Seahawks thinking of expanding his role on offense for sure. And I would have to believe, 1, he's going to be one of the best fantasy sleepers this year. 2, he's going to have a really, really good second year.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised also if Seattle drafts another wide receiver this year to add to that receiving core because, you know, outside of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, I mean, it's not like the receiving core is just this world beater receiving core. So I would not be surprised if they try to add another weapon for Russell Wilson so their offense can become even more dynamic. Because Seattle's never been known as a dynamic offense. But you feel like if Russell Wilson was put in the position to have a dynamic offense, it could definitely be it because we know Russell Wilson can play at a high level. And I also think another team that you have to look out for too is you really don't know what's going to happen with the NFC East, in my opinion. Obviously, we expect the Eagles to be the best team this year in the division, but don't get me started on the Cowboys. But I mean, they could be a team to me that could be maybe by the end of the year the best team in the NFC. I feel like they have still one of the best rosters in the league, and if Carson Wentz can stay healthy and the receiving core can stay healthy, you know, because they're going to draft receivers this year. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be one of the best teams in the NFC because they've upgraded secondary. They have one of the better pass rushes in the league. You know, they have like 3 running backs deep. If they can get the receiving core, Wentz can stay healthy. Wentz just showed you he can take some garbage and shine it up for you. So imagine if you give him some Ferraris. This man's not exactly. So that's a team to me could be the best team in the NFC by the end of this year. Obviously, again, this is pre-draft, so projection wise, I feel like their roster currently could be one of the best and could be the team representing the NFC in the Super Bowl this year.
Right. Okay, so let's take a final break here, and then we're getting to who we think will be off the board in the top 5.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Okay, Brice. So here we are. We're in draft day. You're on the board for the first 5 picks of NFL draft. You have seen the future, and you've come back into the past to let me know who are your top 5 picks that you believe are going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we can just kind of, if we want to skip one, we can, unless you just want to get out a juicy hot take and say Tua is not, Joe Burrow is not going number 1.
Okay. Well, the first overall draft pick, Joe Burrow is coming off the board. I think that's just a match made in heaven. I feel like it's destined. Like I said, Joe Burrow's an Ohio kid. Cincinnati's in Ohio. Bengals are in Ohio. They need a quarterback. The Andy Dalton experiment officially came to an end. And so they're looking for the next phase, the next step. Obviously, Joe Burrow coming off the greatest statistical season that any college football player has had. I think this would be the fit here. And again, I've said to people, this team, in terms of, if we're just looking in terms of the passing game, this passing game is not terrible. They have receivers. They have 3. And Joe Mixon. They just got to get the rest of the team right. And then maybe they can compete because they play in a very tough division too. But I think Joe Burrow going number 1 is the right move. And because, honestly, every year, usually number 1 overall draft pick, there's a couple players in the running. This year is one of the few years I think we kind of all know from the day the season ended, Burrow, Bengals, done. It's been wrapped up, and they haven't even had, they just scouted other players just out of courtesy and just because they have to. With my second pick, I would go with Chase Young. I think that would be the obvious pick for the Washington Redskins to me because I think here's the thing. You can improve this defense. Ron Rivera is trying to bring in a culture, and he's trying to have probably what he had in Carolina, because Carolina was always a top 10 defense while he was here. He's a defensive guy. So he's going to think defensively. And he knows if we can have that elite pass rusher, and the Redskins have brought in a lot of starters this year, a lot of guys who have won, a lot of secondary help, linebacker help. Defensively, he's trying to get this defense at least good. So, because you never know, Washington could be a lot of games this year because of that. And then if that happens, that might present the opportunity to really get a true evaluation of Dwayne Haskins in this first year with Ron Rivera. And also, depending what happens, maybe Kyle Allen, if he plays, we know what happens there. But I think Chase Young will be the pick number 2. Number 3, I think Detroit will take the corner from Ohio State. I think that's been the pick the whole time. I think that's the guy that people have been projecting for the longest time. I think that's who they need because they just got rid of Darius Slay. So it would make sense that you replace your number 1 corner with a guy that you think could be a number 1 corner. Mm-hmm. So, I think that would be the pick there for me if I was the Lions, just to get your secondaries right. With number 4, the New York Giants, I think they're going to go with Isaiah Simmons. I think they're going to get the guy, because Isaiah Simmons, one thing about Isaiah Simmons is he plays linebacker, but he can play really any position. He can play he can play like that third safety. He can play linebacker. He can even rush off the edge if he needed him to. He is one of the most versatile players in this draft. And he's one of those gadget players that you would love to have. Depending on your defensive personnel, you can put him in any position, and he can excel at any position. He is what people consider probably one of the safest, even though there's never 100% safe-proof pick, one of the safest players to take in this draft in terms of production from the get-go and for the longevity of his career. And with number 5, I do think that Miami does go ahead and they do take Tua as their 5th pick. I think, listen, this is a guy that I feel like Miami has wanted since the beginning of the season. You heard rumors during the season that they wanted Tua. Obviously, this injury happened. Now everybody's like, okay, does this make them say, okay, we can't do it? From what I've gained and from what I've seen, from all the message boards, community boards, the fans want him. I think the Dolphins still would like him on the team as their guy going forward. You have Ryan Fitzpatrick. You don't have to play him right away. I think they will still go out on a limb and take Tua. I just don't think they can let another Drew Brees situation happen and you get scared off by an injury, even though the talent is there if he stays healthy, because you can somewhat control. If you put Tua in a great offensive line and you create an offense that makes him get the ball out of his hands, which I think Tua can definitely do, Tua may be able to show why he should have been maybe the top quarterback that should have been taken in regardless before the season started. So those are my top 5 picks, Ethan.
All right. Then I'll quickly give my own. Here we are. So I agree with, of course, Joe Burrow going first. And, the Chase Young thing has been very, very controversial for me because I believe that they need to be looking at getting a quarterback at the number 2 spot instead of looking at Chase Young. But if they believe that Haskins or even the other Kyle Allen, can get it done at the quarterback position, what am I to tell them no? So I'm okay with the idea of them getting Chase Young. Detroit could either do 2 things. They could either take Jeffrey Okudah, which would be the smart thing to do at that pick if they choose to keep it, or they'll trade down. And I don't know what they're going to look at for trading down, but I wouldn't be mad at them for trading down because I'm sure there's other cornerbacks in this draft that they could look at to go get, and it could help round out their team even more. And Isaiah Simmons for New York makes sense. They are one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL by far last season, and they need all the help they can get. And a guy that can essentially be the Swiss Army knife of your defense for the foreseeable future has to be very intriguing for many Giants fans to see. But if the Giants somehow trade out or trade down, or even worse, Detroit decides to say, hey, we want Isaiah Simmons, I would expect New York to try and trade down and move out of the top 10 or maybe the top 6 or 7 and find somewhere else to go. In Miami, I want to believe Tua is going number 5. But all this chatter, all this talk about it, there has to be some smoke to this fire here. I think that Justin Herbert might end up being taken number 5, and it may just be some smokescreen stuff. It may just be that somebody's camp is throwing out a lot of stuff to shy away or get people off the scent or whatever the case may be. But maybe Justin Herbert goes 5, and that would mean Tua would go anywhere between 6 and wherever, supposedly. So that's what I think is probably going to occur right there. What do you think that Cleveland, where do you think Jerry Jeudy goes? Because some people have him going 9 to Jacksonville.
I mean, I could definitely see that because obviously Jacksonville has some guys, but I also know they're revamping. So that's a guy that they could definitely go with there. Jerry Jeudy will have a lot of suitors, obviously, because I think everybody solidifies him as the top quarterback. I mean, not the top quarterback, top wide receiver in this draft. I think that he could go there. If he was able to fall to the Jets, I think the Jets would love to take him there. I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina took him because, I mean, outside of DJ Moore, I mean, they don't really have a solidified receiver that I guess people have trust in, which would help Teddy Bridgewater. So that could be a team that also could make that move. I feel like if the Browns did trade OBJ and let's say it was before they got to their pick, then I could also be another destination. I don't think he would get any lower than the Jets, though, if he was available, unless they love Ruggs more than Judy. If that was the case, then the Raiders would probably take him at 12. Okay. But, it just depends.
All right. Well, you heard it here. That will be the last segment of today's podcast. Thank you all for tuning in, checking us out, giving us a good listen. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you do choose to take part to listen to us. Thanks for rocking. Don't forget to check out our social media, engage with us, ask us some questions. We won't bite. That is our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Twitter. For Brice, this is Ethan. Sign out, and we'll see you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.